it's your boy Beta. In today's banlist season, where predictions are going on left and right and card prices are going up or down like basketballs. Now I'm going to admit that what I'm going to rant about is something I personally hear often, but the price for Shaddoll Construct had gone up a bit from both his original Ultra print and the Megaton print. But the Ultra Rare, at the time of this video, has gone up to $30, which I didn't really understand at first and brought up to a few friends, and they were in mutual agreement that Construct would be going to 1 soon, possible unlimited, and people will be able to play Shaddolls at full power again. Now this has been an argument for the past year going about, and I honestly agreed at one point, but nowadays I wholeheartedly disagree with the notion. Unlimited is completely out of the question, but at 1 is still dangerous in my opinion. Now I want to be clear at this point. Construct's effect is not the problem. I've heard a few reasons from people that it should stay banned because of the effect to destroy special summon monsters by card effect when in battle, and that this was a devastating effect to be ever slapped on a monster. At the time of its fame, I would have agreed, but the meta constantly evolves with each introduction of a new archetype that could stop its predecessor. Now I'd like to bring up the more recently squashed meta that has been ban-hammered to explain that even Construct's ability is not a problem then. So, I would like to go over Zodiac, True Draco, and Spiral in this example as Link Arrow is just becoming a thing, at full power, and for the sake of likely situational argument, let's hypothetically say Construct is at 1. Now Zodiac will always be remembered as 1 card equals full scary board when Rat was at 3, and always as an end result Trident would be on board. Now it is incredibly difficult for there to be a Shaddoll and a Link monster on the board nowadays, let alone adding another fusion in that free Link marker. If Construct could successfully hit any of the 3 to 5 special summon monsters on the board, it would take care of it no problem, but by then Trident would have used her effective pop Construct, assuming it was even deemed a problem to use Trident for it. But Solemn Strike was heavily ran in this era as well as most competitive builds, or at the very least sided, and would have been negated and destroyed as soon as the effect activated. And even if it did get Trident in battle, Emerald, being at 3 at the time, could simply recycle it, or your opponent could have easily summoned the second one they would have had in their extra deck. True Draco. Masterpiece, on top of having a built-in immunity effect, is a normal summon monster 9% of the time, and can easily attack over Construct or pop it via its card effect if need be. But that's assuming Construct is on board long enough to see Masterpiece for more than a second before it gets popped by the effect of any of the Draco Spell or Trap lineup, since they're going to be used for the summon of Masterpiece and get rid of the problem cards like your Construct, or be popped as a result of resolving Diagram. Spirals. Tough and Sleeper, searchable and easily accessible by their own archetype, even now could take care of Construct easily, though Tough would require to call the right card, and if we're talking the days of triple drone, then that is the case. And this isn't even taking into account the amount of cards they have access to and the monsters they can easily summon outside of their own archetype. And even then Ash Blossom existed while all these decks were at full power and could negate Shaddoll Fusion before they could summon Construct. And this is the extreme example of decks that had gotten hit by the ban list as well, but out of all of these as they are now, Construct could still get her ass handed to them, except maybe by Zodiacs with the loss of Trident. But let's go even further with examples of newer decks being played. Darkness Slayer. Field spell, tribute Construct with one of your thousands of ways to tribute your opponent's now dark monsters to benefit from their loss. Moving on. Sky Strikers. They'll always have enough spells engraved to fully use their abilities to take care of her, and that's not even taking into account the cheeky builds that actually do something with their main monster zones. Trickstars. Konami, for the love of sweet and salty Christ, ban this thing already! Now, Construct could survive being on the field for a hot moment, and you could kill a Lycanroc with her ability, after you've already been burned for half of your life. But an easy out can be done against Construct by searching one or the other of either Light Stage or Candina. Use the other one of these 2 cards to search Caliban and drop the hand trap Trickstar while using your normal summon Candina to attack over Construct. And I'm aware that Caliban is still currently OCG only, but Trickstars do run an extensive amount of traps, and though admittedly I don't have extensive experience playing against them since I'm always burned to death before I can make a decent play, I'm sure they have ways around Construct in terms of TCG. Now it may seem that this is all just a big roast on Construct that is counterproductive to my statement that she will stay banned, but I just want to make it as clear as possible that Construct's battle ability is not the problem. And I'm not saying she will die right away 100% of the time, it's just that compared to all these examples she's become outclassed, but her effect is still a useful one. In fact, Construct isn't even the main problem, she's just a facet to a problem. And that problem is Shaddoll Fusion. After the ban of Shaddoll Construct, the Shaddoll archetype has been used often as a supporting engine. A couple of notable ones off the top of my head in this case being Subterror, Trains, and Prediction Princess, and I'm sure there are a plethora of others, with the exception of most light archetypes. Because of the effect to use monsters from your deck as fusion materials with the stipulation that your opponent controls an extra deck monster, a condition that has been easier and easier to meet as the game progresses, this is a weak stipulation. Though not as play extensive as Brilliant Fusion, Shaddoll Fusion has its own utility from Brilliant. It's far harder to brick within Brilliant Fusion because if you're playing a Shaddoll engine, you're viewing it as standpoint to run a small variety of any ratio between Dragon, Beast, Squamata, and Falcon. You'll sometimes have at least one of these in your hand, but having that one won't kill the Shaddoll Fusion being in hand, which is still very searchable by the Predaplant engine. However, most builds around Brilliant will die if they draw a Garnet, given players usually only run one copy. And even then, if you use Shaddoll Fusion, or just Shaddolls in your hand as pitching fodder, you get beneficial effects. Now keeping this in mind, the Shaddoll Fusion engine isn't ideal in every deck, like Brilliant at times, but it is splashable in most decks based on attribute because of the second material requiring such. Shekinaga, Winda, and Anoyadilus are the primary cards in this case. I think everyone who knows about the Shaddoll engine is aware of Shaddoll trains with Ruffian searching. Anoyadilus is a good disruption whenever water deck have at you, but you can send your frogs for totally awesome plays, or just send Blue Boy. In Window you run in just about anything Shaddoll related since she's the easiest to bring out and is objectively the best out of the bunch. Now what light monsters can you send through this effective construct was at 1? Well, there's Wolf and Turtle, one being archetype-specific monster, which we'll go in depth with momentarily, and the other being OK Battle Trap from the graveyard. Trick Call and Damage Juggler, one for the specific purpose of searching the other, and the other one being a Play Extender and Brilliant Fusion supporting builds if you do the Predaplant Heroic combo. Wyvern is a Chaos supporting monster, and they're getting support here in the TCG I assume relatively soon. And then there's the ever so popular Fairy Tail Snow. You know, that thing that keeps dodging the ban list? That Pokemon that is not once per turn and can keep popping up like a door-to-door Jehovah's Witness as long as you have dead cards to lose? Probably the biggest problem monster in this example? Brilliant Fusion can do the same things with these examples, and has shown this with things like Light Swarms. However, how many decks are there that can stuff a light monster inside for a Seraphonite, run anything besides Trick Clown? How much utility does Brilliant Fusion have if you've already used it once? How many times do you dead draw into another copy of Brilliant Fusion after you've activated the first one? Now, I'm not saying Brilliant Fusion is bad by any means, no. It's a very powerful fusion card, and it's a great play extender, and if Master Diamond being put to 1 is any indication, Gen Knights themselves are a pretty good archetype. However, Construct is put to 1, I think it would be optimal to play the Shaddoll engine over this to play extend, but the results would have bad consequences in a broken manner. One of the main uses of Seraphonite is being a link material with the second normal summon being icing on the cake. Let's say you go second. You have 6 cards in hand and you drop Shaddoll Fusion. You summon Construct by sending Clown and Shaddoll Beast from your deck to the graveyard. Chain effect 1 Beast, chain link 2 Clown. Resolve Clown, resolve Beast. You just +2 off of a Fusion card and you have yet to do your normal summon. And taking account to a link summon, every L Shaddoll Fusion monster, if they are sent to the graveyard, meaning no matter how they get there, can let you add the same Shaddoll Fusion back to your hand. And if you're someone who thinks Construct can come back to 3, that means you just added back your way to summon your second copy of Construct. And this time you can send Fairy Tail Snow and proceed to either pop an opponent's card, set a Shaddoll monster, or draw a card if you play 2 beasts. And by then you have plenty of cards in the graveyard to work with, so you got Snow. And it is searchable by the popular Predaplant engine with Lone Fires, so you can theoretically play only 1 copy of Fusion and be just fine. Which brings up another thing, all the 6 examples of light monsters I presented earlier can be generically used in any deck. Almost. You wouldn't use Wolf, Turtle can be cheeky but is certainly not a win condition. Wyvern is Wyvern, and unless you're playing some form of Chaos deck, you're not playing Wyvern. Juggler and Clown are obvious from my earlier example, but then there's Snow. Probably the main reason I don't think Construct can easily come off of the list. You can play her in any deck, but that argument can be made of every other card. Would you play her in any deck? Outside of its main uses today, no. More often than not, you're either never going to see it in your hand, or you could draw it at the worst possible moment and cost you the game. Maybe you can get a good use out of it every once in a while, but you'd be better off playing something else, especially when it comes to the Brilliant and Clown Blade combo. Snow is definitely a broken card, but what it can be played in, at least consistently, is fairly limited. But when it comes to Construct, it makes Snow much more versatile. Shaddoll Construct makes grave dumping easier, and the cards it sends far more varied in options. Construct would be leagues better and more consistent to use, and would be less dead than Brilliant as an example for play extension. You can make this card easily in any of the current meta decks mentioned earlier, possibly with the exception of Darkness Slayer. Trickstars would have a 2800 beater to further poke you to death. Sky Strikers could find some utility for it, I'm sure, as long as you have at least 3 spell cards in the graveyard. Light Swarms would have a bigger heyday with it. Mech Knights and Evoke could utilize it, you name it. Just a note that bugs me a little is that Cyframes can use this as well. As far as recycling goes, the deck doesn't have much on it for your dualities, cards, and use whatever. So on top of using a Cyframe hand trap to negate your opponent's effects, you have a Snow on backup in case they somehow bypass your bullshit. And even if you do use her effect, you can banish things that you don't need anymore and or set up a Cyframe tuner and non-tuner for your Psychic Field Zone. There's only one way I think they can bring Construct back without errata, and though it is worth to note that Konami could do a test run with having Construct put to 1 if they banned Snow on the same list release, but I still think that Construct is still too good otherwise with a plethora of light options. As I said, it is this card that makes Construct the broken mess it is because Construct does Engrave Dump, Shaddoll Fusion does. However, this is a Shaddoll player's bread and butter, and that would defeat the purpose of wanting Construct back. That's the only way I could see this ending up, regardless on whether or not they ban Snow, which they should. But hey, I could be wrong. If they tested Snatch Steal to 1 at one point, they can test Construct and Shaddoll Fusion being legal at the same time in this format and era. Now, I can't see the future, but if they do, just remember what it can abuse. This was your boy Beta with a rant that was probably longer than it should have been, and if you liked the video, please like, comment, and if you want to see what else I have, subscribe. If you disagree with me, please leave a comment down below and tell me why. Ladies and gentlemen, dudes and dudettes, I wish you good whatever time it is. Thank you and see you in the next one.